you cool cats, welcome to another Girls Frontline video. I'm Mina and this is a progression for new players video. In this video I want to talk about setting up your game for faster battles, building your main party, building a second party with useful guns to level, your biggest goals for early game progression, choosing where to farm for XP, and planning mode. What this guide does not contain, however, is an exhaustive list of all the types of parties to use, a tier list of units that I would recommend using, and every possible path of leveling. This video is already going to be long, and I'm going to try to make this more focused on getting you from starting your first party to hitting level 100 as quickly as possible. Disclaimer at the front, I have tested all of these locations and used them myself to level, so I can say pretty confidently that everything I talk about in this video has been verified by me. However, the information I obtained from this video actually came from reading posts on the Reddit and looking at a blog post from Dmesse for some of the harder levels. I do want to give proper credit to Dmesse not only for the maps that I checked myself, but perhaps maps that you might find more useful than I did. So in the description of the video I made sure to link to his blog post. Dmesse goes into detail over why to use the maps, but the biggest reason why I picked the maps to show you in this video is that you can beat them pretty quickly at convenient levels. Starting off with building an effective main party, you should make your first party a party of 3 ARs and 2 SMGs. Why? There are multiple reasons. Number one, ARs and SMGs have synergy together. Their formation buffs are typically for one and another. Number two, their synergy includes DPS units and evasion tanking, which is pretty nice and strong for starting out. And number three, as you progress, you will recruit 4 AR units from the story, and they make incredible units for your team. Because of this, you can level 3 other AR units and replace them with story units without too much worry on if they're good or bad ARs. This lack of RNG in the whole system kind of makes it a better team to go with. Number 4, the other synergy team we can use right now in the game is RF and HG teams, and while that team is great for reasons that you'll see later, it just makes more sense to level the guaranteed solid team the game hands you at the start. Number 5, the game gives you lots of Sten and Scorpion dupes, which kind of nods you into the direction of making the AR SMG to begin with. Less important than the main party is that you should consider a second party with handguns and rifles or machine guns. Keep in mind that machine guns want to boost shotguns, so if you go that route, you'll be missing half of the synergy. As of the current date that I made this video, we do not have shotguns on the English server. You could also work on another AR SMG team as the second team, but I would shy away from this, as once you reach the point of doing night battles, you'll want to have a second team designed for it. Nothing stopping you from making a third team anyways. Now, while I wouldn't want to tell someone what specific units work best together, I guess what I can do is advise what I went with originally so you can get an idea. I started with using this team that you see here. What I found out really quickly was that AK-47's formation tiles were pretty bad. I ended up swapping in L85A1 to hold down this spot until I recruited M4A1. Began to realize that Sten Mark II was holding back my team pretty badly right around when I pulled UMP45. I didn't get dupes of UMP45, so I knew I would have to use cores to get her up to speed. I don't regret this decision at all. Once I recruited the other 2 story units, I was running the same team that I'm using right now. I suppose I could swap in UMP9 in for Scorpion, but I'd rather keep Scorpion for now just to offset the costs of the cores. Moving on, my second team was one of the last things I worked on, which I slightly regret now that I'm trying to clear night stages. I realized that 3 of the units that I have on this team are 5 stars, and it's very unlikely that you would be able to run this team so early on, and it's unrealistic for me to even suggest that. So instead, I will offer my advice on what to run if I had started the game over right now. MKP-23 is a unit you get from your 7-day login, so I'd keep her here on this roster. PPK is a good handgun for night battles that you can replace later on with a better handgun. Side note, if you happen to be playing this game right now, you can get a 5-star handgun from the event, so I would go with that instead. You can utilize one of the SMGs from your main party here instead of the Thompson that I have, or just a backup SMG that can tank well. M14 is a great 3-star rifle, but let's say you don't get lucky enough to pull her and you haven't reached the quest that you get her from. I would probably recommend G43 here. In the last spot, I'd say use SV98. Replace this one with WA2K or SVD in the future. If you're worried about wasting your time on any unit that won't be used in these parties for the future, you need to put that out of your mind. You can move these units into logistics parties, so there's nothing really going to waste here. While we're on the subject of these units, we need to have a serious talk about cores. In the beginning of the game, you'll get a bunch of cores that you may be tempted to use on 4-star or 5-star units that you pull. I highly advise you not do that, as it will more than likely slow down your progress. It's better to save these cores for your main team, if necessary, and especially if you end up using the story units, because you can't pull dupes of the story units, and you probably want to use cores for them. So you want to progress to the point where you can do core farming, and then you can go ham on using the cores if you so desire. Leaving the party building behind us now, let's talk about goals for progression. Your first goal will be to beat Chapter 2-6, Chapter 3-3, and Chapter 3-6 to obtain the first 3 story AR dolls. My suggestion after reaching that point is to do 2 things. Number 1, utilize friends to keep pushing through the story to get to beating 4-4 Emergency. Number 2, go back to every zone and work on getting gold and silver ranks in them. Doing this, I found that my main party was well into the level 40, and I ended up doing 4-3E quite early. If you don't reach this level by that time, you can do Chapter 3-5 at level 30+, which I recommend. It's worth noting that if you're leveling a second team, you can have them just join along in the intermediate experience point stage, and from level 1, you only need to do about 6 attempts of intermediate to get them to level 30. Now before I go into all my leveling tips, you might be frustrated because you're stuck on a particular floor. I'm going to tell you right away that by utilizing friends, as long as you can barely kill one enemy, there's few floors you can't win by just trying to hold down a spot. To show you what I mean, I'm going to quickly run you through the boss floors of Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 4-4 Emergency. So for those of you invested in learning how to use your friends to take advantage of clearing the content earlier than expected, stick with me here. If you're capable of doing that without me, then skip to the timestamp to jump to how I leveled my units. I'll also include timestamps in my pinned message in the comment section and also in the video description. Now the rest of you can come along with me as I do Chapter 2-6. I will fast forward through the parts of the fight that don't include my units, so it's going to go very quickly. For this first stage, I'm going to tell you some advice on how to use your friends effectively. The first thing you need to do is see what's the fastest route to get to the command post. From there, you're going to want to try and make sure that you help your friends move at least 1 square earlier than expected. So by doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start the operation with my weaker team here. I'm going to move them up this 1 square that's the closest route to getting to the command post. Now I'm going to summon my friend. I'm going to click on the unit and tell them to capture the headquarters. Now I'm going to select my unit and move down and switch places with my friend unit. I'm going to then move my unit down here to the south, and I'm going to deploy a secondary friend unit on this map. I'm going to leave this friend unit on wait, and I'm going to select my unit and swap places with her. The reason why that I'm doing this is because the enemy is going to arrive down here, and I need someone to defend this spot, because likely we're going to lose this spot that my unit is right there. So, going ahead and ending this round. As expected, the enemy took this square right here. this unit will arrive on this unit the next turn, and then on the turn off after that will automatically take that base. So what we need to do is we need to decide where do we want our team to defend. Knowing that this unit up here has a higher attack rating than the ones down here, I'm actually going to swap here so that way you can see that I'm going to try and just defend one of the weaker attacks and leave my friend to take on the hard attack. And now I'm going to end my turn. As you can see, I only had to defend one enemy on this map, because this next turn, when I end the round, the friend unit is going to capture the base. And there you go. I beat that level while only having to do one battle. If you feel like you understand this whole methodology, you don't have to watch the rest of this part of the segment. You can jump to the timestamp again that I list right here, or you can go ahead and click on the link in the comment section or in the video description. For the rest of you who want to see me beat Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 4-4 Emergency, hang in there. So quick overview of this map, you always need to have a unit on the command post no matter what. And then you need to have a friend unit basically charge down this heliport down to the command post down here. What you can do is you can have this unit right here, even if it's a sacrifice unit, you can use like a team that only has one handgun just to move the friend unit across one space. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that because you probably can do a one-hand gun method. This is another one of those maps where you need to be able to hold off at least one enemy. So, I'm going to help my team move along down here by just moving down one square. And now, I'm going to deploy friend unit here. What I'm going to do with this friend unit is I'm going to tell them to eliminate enemies. I'm then going to switch places. Now over here is where I'm going to want to move my other friend unit that's going to capture the base. So I'm going to move what would be basically one cheap unit here. And then I would deploy a friend unit that was going to capture the headquarters. And again, swap places so she gets an extra moved space. I will then end my round. Alright, it's now turn 2. What I am going to change about my teams right now is I'm going to tell this team to stand by. So basically she's going to prevent any enemies from crossing up here no matter what. Use this strategy if you need to, otherwise, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and end round until we defeat the boss. Now that I've beat Chapter 3-6, what's nice about this is you've recruited your third story unit AR, and now you can go ahead and build that main party that I was talking about. Let's continue on to Chapter 4's boss. So again, this is another one of the chapters where you have to fight at least one enemy. So what I am going to do right here is I'm going to only place my one unit down here because I'm going to put the friend unit that's going to eventually cross and beat the boss here. Now keep in mind that this friend unit's going to have to go through quite a few enemies and then have to eventually beat the boss enemy at the end with basically 9,000 strength. So make sure that it's a strong friend unit for this one. Alright. We're going to move my unit here. And then we're going to deploy... I would say don't deploy the strong one here. I would say deploy a weaker one than the one you intend to send up there. And you're going to want to tell this one to eliminate enemies. Just for one turn at least. You're going to then move there. And if you so desire, you can move up here and just go ahead and face this enemy if you want. You're going to have to fight them anyways, and you might as well just take this ground. And now we're going to put my strong friend unit up here, who I'm going to tell to capture the headquarters. With that all being said, I'm going to end round here. Alright, and now I'm going to tell this team to stand by here. Basically, she's going to create a choke point so that way no enemies can get through on this side. I'm then going to basically send this team to stand down here in the command post, and basically we're just going to wait it out until we beat the boss. What's really cool about this is that this is the same exact strategy you're going to use for Chapter 4-4 Emergency. And because that's the strat you're going to use, I'm going to tell you right now that you're just going to have to make sure that your friend unit at the top is really strong in order to mow through all of that. So again, I only needed to fight one enemy on this map in order to win. The rest was all my friend units. And for those who were intimidated by Chapter 4-4's floor on the emergency, you can see it's basically the same thing. There are harder units, and they've also have this spot right here captured, so that's when you're definitely going to have to back into the command post because she will reach that point. Now that being said, you just need to buckle down and let your friend unit go across the top here and defeat the boss right there. Now that we're all back together to discuss where to level, so my recommendation is level your parties initially by just doing gold and silver attempts on stages you haven't already done. If this doesn't put you at level 30, you can honestly pick any stage you want to level, but I would recommend 2-3. What's cool about 2-3 is that you have just enough squares to make it to the command post and take it over. So all you really need to do is be able to fight these enemies right here that you see. And it's just really handy to beat everything in one turn, so that way you don't have to basically wait for the enemies to move around. Saves time. Once you reach somewhere in the level 30s, I would recommend doing Chapter 3-5. As you can see, there are a couple ways to make it to Chapter 3-5's boss command post right there, and you can take whichever route you like. There is a little bit of level differences, as you can see, between the power ratings of the enemies. So if you want to take on a stronger route, you can go to the right here, or if you want to take a slightly weaker route, you can take this route right here. Either way, you know, there's multiple ways of clearing this map, and yeah, I like it for leveling. If you're feeling extra daring, I showed this in my beginner's guide video. However, what you can do is go to 4-3 emergency. What you need to do on this map is you need to deploy a team here at the command post. This will not be the team that's leveling. This will just be a team that just has to be deployed because it's the command post. I recommend using a level 1 handgun or something to stand at this command post all by itself. That way you don't have to worry about resources being spent or anything, and putting your main party over here at the heliport. What you can do if you want to do this level early is you can defeat the 2 enemies here and end this turn on the heliport, which you will capture, and then you can repair and then go up here and face the boss. This enemy right here in between the heliport and the boss, if you wait for the next turn, will move down to this captured question mark random tile. So you only have to fight 3 enemies if you do that. What's nice about that is that no enemy will capture your command post on the turn after you go, because they have to go 1 more square. So yeah, if you feel like doing it that way, that's a safe way to do it. However, you should not attempt to do this unless you can actually beat the command post unit here, because this is not a boss stage. So if you have units die on you, then well, you're gonna lose affection. So yeah, don't do that. You'll honestly be stuck at 4-3 for a very long time, but you can switch it up if you want to chapter 5-4. So at level 60, you can go to this map, and honestly, you can stay here for quite a while. There are so many ways to solve this map, and honestly, you just take a look at what enemies you feel like fighting, and that'll be the route that you're going to go to. Now 5-4 is actually a boss floor. It's the 5-6 normal stages boss, and the way you beat this is, again, you put a single handgun unit down here, and then at the top up here you put your main leveling party and cross across the top here to face off with the enemy there. Now what's nice is that this is a boss floor, so if your units can make it to the boss, even if they die at the boss, you won't lose affection. For the sake of illustrating this, I'm going to actually put in my leveling team. And while I'm doing this, what I am going to show you how to do is planning mode. So if you click over here, planning mode, as you can see I'm toggling it on the left, you then select your team and you select where to go. And your team is just going to travel along there, and you execute the plan. I didn't mean to click there. What's cool is normally after every combat you have to reselect the next square that you want them to move on, but in this case they're going to just keep going from one battle to the next, to the next, to the next until they finish. I don't know why it wasn't working for a second, but now it's working, so. I think it's because I accidentally almost halted it in the middle of transferring, so it did that on its own. But as you can see, it's selecting where to go now. I'm about 50-50 on this boss on whether or not she kills my UMP-45, and it basically depends on how well she evades. The more evasion you have, the better luck you'll have having your unit survive this. And this is part of the 50-50 where she survives. She's really damaged though. With that being said, I have now beaten the boss and taken the command post, so I'm going to end round. Oh. So I'm sure some of you will ask, why would you want to do the 5-4 boss stage over doing a different stage where you don't have units die or lose a lot of health on? And the main reason why is boss stages give you more XP. So if you're wanting to go faster and you're willing to pay for the cost of it, go here to the emergency stage on 5-4. And the last stage is 0-2, which I wouldn't recommend farming until you reach level 80. I've already tried to do it, and let's just say it hasn't been too successful with my level 76 team, and I'm told that level 80 things will be a little bit better for me. So I'd rather wait until I can do that successfully. Why would you go to 0-2? The drop rate supposedly has really high 3-star, 4-star, and that makes it a really good core farming place. So that's your ultimate goal. Once you make it to that stage, you can actually stay there until you reach level 100. This is the only thing I'm going to suggest you do that I haven't verified myself, but I feel like it's necessary to say. Now, it's important to say that any of the 2-star dolls that you collect from dropping should be fed to your units. Specifically, make sure to feed your DPS and whichever tank seems to be tanking the most damage, though it's best to keep everyone leveled. Remember, levels don't raise the stats of your units, it just raises their thresholds. And one of the things that I found out shortly after I made that new player's guide was actually that the options menu has some stuff that you can turn on and off. One of the things that I recommend you turn off is the skill cut-in animations. While I love them and they're cute, they actually can inhibit you from playing pretty optimally. So yeah, I would shut off the skill cut-in animations at the very least. I'm sure some of these other settings might also improve your speed, but that is definitely one I would shut off. Hopefully this guide has helped you get your feet wet with the forward progression of this game. While I didn't discuss every single possible route one could take, nor go into too much depth about the multitude of party compositions or good units you can use to level, I aim to try and give you the most newbie-friendly methods that I have used and tested myself. With that, I hope to see you guys in another video of mine. If you enjoyed this video or like my content, feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. If you have any ideas of a video you want made by me, I'd love to hear from you. Or if you're into Let's Plays, I have a separate channel and a link to it in my video description. In any case, have a great day. Bye bye!